Right. All right, so this is a thumbnail that we just put together for a video cast, and my VA did it, and I was like, yes, I liked it, but I was looking for something a little bit more depth. Are we? All right, we are live. All right, I'm like, is this working? I'm like, is this working? So I'm doing a multi-stream so it can get out to multiple platforms. But here I want to show you guys what I ended up doing. And all right, so we are streaming live. All right, so what I ended up doing, close this guy, is I ended up creating this. And I want to show you guys, even though it's not like a huge difference, if we were like, oh wow, look at the big difference. Maybe it's like not huge, right? But I thought I could show you guys like how you can use a tool like this, because I've used Canva and other tools, and I love Canva because it's free. But then a lot of times I feel like I'm a little bit lacking because it didn't have some of the depth and layer that I personally like. So if you guys want, stick tuned. I'm gonna walk you guys through how I created this and show you how you can easily use this for your system as far as social media. Because a lot of times we get frustrated, we get stuck, and we're trying to do these things. All right, so right now, I apologize, West Coast time. All right, so the first thing, let's break it down and let's show some simple things we can do. And this is a multi-layered thumbnail. And even though this is a 1920 by 1080, what we want to do is when we produce it for YouTube, we want it this size because it actually looks pretty good and it actually shows a difference. So let's go ahead and walk you guys through. This is more of a tutorial style video that I'm kind of sharing right now. So if you guys are in the midst of a Friday night movie, which I'm in trouble, which I need to be doing, then, you know, by all means. But let me walk you guys through what I did. So I went to File, I went to New. And then here, this is Affinity Designer. And so Affinity Designer, there's no affiliate link. It was about 50% off. So it's maybe like 30 bucks, normally like 60 bucks, something like that. So I come in here and I choose the layout. In this case, I chose 1920 by 1080. That is right. And then here's my canvas. And what's cool is this is just me being able to manipulate it with my, oops, let me make sure I'm visible. Sorry about that, guys. I just realized I crossed off the wrong thing. Boom. Where is, 1 second. I am here having some technical difficulty. Who loves that, right? There it is. Okay, so it's all white. Maybe that's the problem. Okay. So I'm still here with you. I'm streaming this in OBS, if you guys are familiar with that. And it allows me to capture a different screen. All right, so this is this color screen. You're like, hey, this kind of looks weird, right? But this is a transparent background. So one of the first things I like to do is pick a shape. So I like creating the shape, and I'm gonna just make it fast and simple so you guys can see. And once I create the shape, I come over here, and then I hold down the Command key, and I could pull. Let me make sure it's a Command key. I could pull and multiply it. So let's change this color because this color is kind of blah. Let's go with a blue. I'm going to delete this because I don't want that. And so what I'm going to do is basically come on over here, and I'm going to create this as a multi-layer. And for everybody knows, I am for those who don't know, I am not any person designing, go to design school or anything like this. This is just something that I kind of found myself getting into. And while I'm not saying you should do this, because there's times you should spend your time doing other things, there's times where if you go look for that Fiverr person and you're going back and forth and it's taking you 4 hours and you can do it in an hour, sometimes there's a time to do it and sometimes there's not. So you have to ask yourself like when that time is. So I'm going to pull this here. And as all I'm doing, I'm on a Mac, so all I'm doing is basically I'm holding down the Command key and I'm selecting this and pulling it down. And let me do this one more time. Oops. And you'll see why I'm like trying to do this. All right, boom. Oh man. All right, cool. No, why are you doing that? I must not be holding my shift command. All right, cool. All right, there we are. All right, so here, let me zoom away. All right, so I got this background. Now what I can do is I can select all this. And then one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to group this. Move this aside. And I'm going to group this. And what it'll do is allow me to move on the canvas. As you can pull, see over to the right, and hopefully that's not too small. I can move things up and down. And so what I'm going to do in this group is I'm going to take some effects and I'm going to add a 3D element to it. And so now it kind of gives it a little bit of pop to it. And so you can dictate that radius, how much you want it to. Actually looks pretty cool. And then say I wanted a different color backdrop. I can go down to here to the document and change the settings here. Or what a lot of times I end up doing is I end up pulling a color, go to my layers, and then I drop it here. And then so say I want this layer let's go with like a steel kind of color. Yep. Color way up. Okay. So say I want to get a boom. Not perfect. But again, this is going to be a thumbnail. So this thumbnail is really going to be about this small. So if you look at something like that, like, okay, that looks pretty cool. And then what I like to do is take another layer and then throw it on top. And so what I'll do is make this my kind of like my layer, main layer, darken it. Typically I go like darker because that's my colors. And then I'll make it a little bit more transparent. And so say how like, hey, you look a little, these look a little cornered, a little weird. You can just rotate that. Right? So cool enough. And so anything you want to change, you can do that. So one of the things I did is I would come in here I'd pull an image of myself. And so what I did is I downloaded some, let me go to my downloads. So I went into my downloads, I pulled some green screen stuff of me. And here's me, pretty large, all right, so this is one of the cool things, like, and Canva finally added there's like backdrop or remover and stuff like that. So Canva finally, I think, added one, but I think it's their premium version. And I'm not trying to talk bad about Canva. I think Canva is a great resource. So if you want to quickly remove this thing, and you'll notice I actually have a green hue because I didn't light myself properly. I'll come over here and select this pixels thing. Now this took me a while to figure out. So I'll come over here and I select this. What's the name of this tool? This is the selected brush tool. I'll come over here and I'll start selecting this. Let me make it a little bit bigger. It's really small. And I'll increase the radius up here. And I'll just kind of select it. And then what I want to do is I'll hit this refine button. And it kind of does its magic. I don't know what the heck it really does. And then I think I should hit apply if I remember correctly. And then, you know what I did last time? I hit rasterize. Now what that allowed me to do, and just to test it, that I got this, yep. So let me see. So what I now do is hit that delete, and then I unselect it by hitting Control D. So now all of a sudden I have myself that I'm like, oh cool, I can kind of do whatever I want. So here's something I clearly missed this stuff, right? For time's sake, I won't get into it, but you can always come over here in this, I guess it's the pixel persona, and you grab this eraser and you can just erase this stuff. All right. So it's not super hard, and it really gives let me increase the radius on this thing. So my colors are yellow, but I'm actually liking this backdrop a little bit. I'm liking my bubbles better on this. And so I would normally redo this, but for time's sake, I'm not going to. Because remember, the goal is to create something like this, to pop a little bit, right? And so one of the cool things you can do is once you're like, hey, I got this down, I'm gonna come out of the pixelated and I'm gonna go into the designer. I'm gonna select the arrow, and then here I am. I'm just lower this just for time's sake. And say I feel like this is too transparent, I'll just come over here and I'll mess with the fill, and then make this a little bit darker. And then you might want to pull in your icon. And one of the cool things you can do with Affinity Designer is you come over here to stock, and you can pick between Pixabay, Unsplash, and Pixels. And so say if I wanted this, I chose this little monkey dude, but say I was like, you know what, I really like this shark for whatever reason. That's not adding. You know what, let me not do that because it did cause me to crash once, I'll be completely honest. But luckily it saved everything, so I was completely fine. So I added this little symbol here, and I did the same thing I did to my image. Oh, you're like, hey, how'd you get this yellowness? Very easy, right? Boom. Let me come over here, select myself, go to Effects, and I come to Outline. Say you want, let's go red for the heck of it. Increase the radius, and boom. And so if you'll notice, a lot of popular thumbnails will have this kind of like effect. And so you guys can do this too. A lot of times you're like, oh, I can't do this stuff. And you're trying to rush to do things, which happens to most people who are super busy, right? Like it's Friday night, I'm doing this. But it makes a difference. Like I saw a big increase by changing my thumbnail. And so hopefully you guys would give stuff a shot. And so say we want to create a little bit of a layer and a lot of times I'll make sure my colors, so you can come into the hex slider. Oops, wrong one. Come into the hex slider and you can put your color in right here. So say you knew your color, you just drop it in and then boom. And then say this was your color and you wanted to add text over it. For those of you who probably like, this is boring, I apologize, but so say this is your title. Okay, so now it looks pretty boring. You're like, oh, I can do this in Canva. Like, why would I need another system? And I'll tell you why, because this is what you can't do. So I'm going to select the arrow. And so again, if we want to add depth, because I like the depth. The depth to me makes the difference. And so let's change the color of this. Let's just make it, looks pretty good. So say we want to make it 3D, click the 3D button, and then you can do that. And then say you want to outline on top of it, you can get outline, pick your, and you have a noise button, which I really didn't play with yet. And the radius. Not saying what I would do, but I'm just showing you that you can do this stuff. And one of the cool things, say you like, hey, this, you can do the same thing to your actual image back there. So it's not perfect the way I would say to do it, but you can see it creates a depth. And so what I did from originally, going from here to now, let me pull this back down. Here, in your case, say this is your case, but in my case here. And I think I go and play with the colors some more. And if you're not sure what it's going to look like, is all you do is take your two fingers and you just minimize that. And you're like, okay, this is what my thumbnail is going to look like. And so you can see, you know, what kind of potential engagement you can have. And I think it looks a lot more engaging. And I'm not trying to say that I'm a perfect designer, but I personally like it better, and it would probably draw my attention because it's all about getting that click to get more people interested in what you do to bring them deeper into your world. So I thought I'd share this with you guys real quick, and I'm just going to hit export. And I'm going to use this for my YouTube video that you guys probably saw earlier. So I'm going to change my thumbnail. I'm going to hit export, and I'm going to do thumb force. title it, and I'm just so I can find it easy in my downloads. Boom, and I'm done. Upload it, you're done, and you can easily create stuff. And one of the cool things is if you're like, hey, where's this one? That's another thumbnail I did. And you can change different sizes, whether it's for Instagram, whether it's for vertical. You have all these different cool options you can do. So if you guys want, if you like this tutorial, I think the biggest time saver I had was how to quickly figure out how to erase my backdrop. But if you guys like this kind of stuff, let me know. If you're like, hey, you know what, this is kind of boring, let me know what you're more interested in. So I'd be happy to either get somebody who can help you or I can share myself. Have a great one, you guys. Keep pushing. And of course, keep doing your thing to get people to help other people with your thing.